and we went through it. We went through it as healthy people during COVID, where we were
Yes.
isolated and couldn't touch anybody and do anything. And a lot of people, were losing their minds and going crazy. And, people got anxiety and now can't go out socially. All these things that
Yep.
changed. And you think about all these people that live with that daily, and there's no end to it.
That's my brother, Michelle. That is my brother. The epilepsy is one thing, but watching him be so lonely is the hardest thing for me.
Hi, Anna. Thank you so much for joining us today. I just like to say that we're thrilled to have you and we're excited to hear about your story. I'm just going to give you this opportunity to introduce yourself.
Hi. Well, thank you so much, Michelle, for having me. This is um, kind of incredible. I never pictured myself being on a podcast. So I'm super excited and nervous and honored that you would have me as a guest. Yeah, my name is Anna. I am a mom to two beautiful 5-year-old twins, Sam and Lucy. I've been married for 18 years. I'm the oldest of four kids. And my brother, right underneath me, my brother Steven, is has epilepsy. He was diagnosed, or started having seizures. I think it took a while to get to that diagnosis. Started having seizures when he was 9, and um, we've kind of been on this ebb and flow over the years of him doing better, him doing worse, and now he is 44, and there's just new challenges that come along with that. But I'm part of a really tight Christian family. We love each other, and I'm a very devoted older sister. A very pushy and devoted older sister.
Well, that's what he needs. So he's very blessed to have you, somebody that
Well,
could advocate for him and, yeah, protect
it
him.
depends
And
on the day how he feels about that.
I bet. So up until he was 9, I mean, was he living a pretty normal life where he was doing all the things that kids would do and didn't have anything different? And then it just kind of
Yep.
came out of
He just
nowhere.
kind of came out of nowhere.
Wow.
Um, we're about 2 years apart, so it's some of that is like a little bit blurry. I think for my siblings and I, we knew something was happening, but as most kids do, you're just like, well, this is my brother, this is what's happening, and you just kind of adjust with it.
Right.
But yeah, he did okay. It was like the older he got, it was almost like the worse he got. And so there were definitely some things that happened when we were kids that are like, burned in my brain. Like he drowned in the ocean having a seizure. And so that was like frightening. But I don't really remember as a kid thinking, oh my gosh, there's something so wrong with my brother. I remember it hitting more in our teens and then especially in our 20s and later on as it kind of progressed.
Okay. So, how did that impact you? So when you started kind of figuring out as you got older, like, oh, there is something, and this is more dangerous than I thought, especially after the incident in the ocean. How were you impacted? How was your family impacted after that?
I mean, it was kind of life changing. I mean, the day that he drowned and watching my dad and the lifeguard pull him out, and I remember sitting by his bed and he was peeling, and I was like, peeling his skin. But I just remember like wanting to watch and make sure that he was okay. And then I feel like when we were teenagers, we knew it was happening, but it wasn't happening as frequently. And also, I don't know, when you're a teen, like you're kind of still involved in your own, like I was very involved in their lives, but my brother Mike shared a bedroom with him. And so for him, that he was the one who saw more of the seizures because they would happen a lot at night or in the early morning. And so for him, that really was like, he was kind of always like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. as we got older and things started to change a little bit and he was having more seizures, I always say it doesn't matter how many seizures you've seen, you never get used to them. They're everyone is horrifying. Everyone takes my breath away. Um, and they're super terrifying, as you know. And so I think the older we got, and then he started having more testing, um, some surgeries that I accompanied him to, like every time he was in the hospital, I was with him or my sister. Like we did everything together as a family. It started really having more of an impact because I started realizing how much more it was impacting his life. I think before I was kind of like, oh, my brother has seizures, but he's okay, like.
Right.
And then as he got older, it was like, oh, my brother has seizures, and is he gonna be okay? Um, and so it started being harder to deal with, at least for me. Like it started impacting me a little bit more, I think, because I think when I was growing up, it was just kind of like, well, this is my brother, this is a thing he has, and it wasn't that big of a deal.
Did you think at some point, maybe during the teenage years, that you would kind of like outgrow it and maybe this is just like a phase, maybe this is going to be
Yep,
ongoing?
he went years without having seizures, and
Okay.
so um, we did think that maybe it was something he could outgrow because that is pretty common in kids that they will have seizures and they will outgrow them. And
Yeah.
so um, I'm trying to think of the year. I was already married. I got married in 2007, so it was about a year or two after that where he something changed and he just started declining. And that's when they really started doing some more in depth testing. That's when he went and had the VNS. We went down to California for that, um, which was a whole thing. And that's when we finally got some answers about they were looking at that surgery where they can cut out part of your brain,
Yeah.
and that's where we kind of found out that it was coming from both sides, that they couldn't do that surgery, that this was most likely something that was just hadn't connected while he was developing, which I think was um, a relief for my mom, who I think always carried this question around like, did she do something? Was there something that happened? Did he hit his head? Like, I'm sure like it's like what caused this? And so when we finally kind of got those answers, I remember being like not only relief for him and myself and my siblings to know, but just so much relief for my mom, to not feel like she had somehow done something along the way to cause that.
As parents, we feel guilt all the time, like we just aren't doing a good enough job, right?
Yeah.
And so, for us, you when you have a child that isn't well, you feel helpless, and so then
Yeah.
you try and think of everything in the book. I mean, from the time that you got pregnant, like, did I
Yeah.
take something? Was
Right.
I sick and took medication? Was it that I didn't notice that he bumped his head? All these things that go through your head, and so as terrifying it is to actually finally get a diagnosis, you do have that relief of, okay, this isn't something that any of us could control. So there is that relief. But now you have this whole new, like, now we have a diagnosis. Now we have, like, this is what's it going to look like for the future? And you just kind of start moving forward. But as a family, did you notice that your parents were, I mean, because, when you have a medically child that's medical uh, complex, they spend a lot of time trying to get, you know, therapy for them, any kind of answers they can get. So did you feel like at any point that they didn't have time for you, not in a bad way, but just like you just understood, you understood that your parents need to take care of him, and so you became more compassionate for them and for him, and so you kind of
Yeah.
um, took care of maybe your other siblings since you were the oldest one. Did you happen to play that role?
Yeah, I mean, there were a few other things that happened when we were kids. My parents did split for a time period and then got back together. So there were other things that kind of played in that I think um, I was more focused on. I think I felt that later on. And my parents have always made time for us, but it's always like, oh, we have to leave. Steve's having an off day, or we can't do this, or, when we're planning things, it's always like, okay, we have to take that into account, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But I think the biggest thing for my siblings and I is that we carry a lot of guilt.
Mm,
And you want so badly to fix this for them. And, I've done all sorts of things. So has my brother, so has my sister. And you can't make this better
yeah,
for him. And then you go on and have your life. My sister has children, my brother has children, I have children. And there's this heavy sense of guilt, even though nobody's placing that on you, that I think we all feel. It's like, you can only be so happy because there's a part of you, your family, when you're close, that's suffering and that's having that and doesn't have the life that they want. And I think that's kind of where my siblings and I struggle the most, is like carrying that. And then also, like, how do we help? And feeling so helpless because, as I'm sure you know, like, epilepsy is kind of a widespread diagnosis. And um, I feel like there's a lot of gray area in that. And there's a lot of slipping through the cracks because sometimes people are just focused on the seizure aspect, but there's all these major drugs that somebody's on. There's, things that they can't do in their life. There's emotional things that happen. And I think that's also been hard to recognize. And especially for my brother, he's been having seizures for so long and he's been on these heavy duty meds for years and years and years. He's actually right in the middle of switching his medication. And it just takes a toll. And then you're kind of left going like, how do I help? And that feeling of helplessness. And I think that's the thing that kind of keeps me up at night. Like, how do I help my brother? And not knowing how to get him help, or not even there being appropriate help as he comes into later adulthood, which is very frustrating.
it's hard. And like you said, there's such a gray area in the seizures. There's so many different kind, and there's
Hmm.
no rhyme or reason, and there's no, I mean, they're so unbiased, and
Yep.
so, like you said, when your family's trying to plan things and do things, like, okay, how's this going to affect? I remember taking Riley out to one of my son's football games, and he was little, still in a car seat, and but he was having lots of seizures and stuff, and the team made a touchdown, and all the parents were just stomping their feet on the metal bleachers, and Riley just went into one of the worst seizures, and so I couldn't get out of there fast enough with him. Like, he's sneezing, and we're going into those cluster seizures, so he'd like have 25 minutes of it. So I'm trying to get out of there and have to go across the field and do everything, and then you just like you feel bad that you're leaving your other son's game to take care of the son that needs you. And so there, as parents, there's always this having to choose, right? And then, so that's why I wanted to have you on, especially as an older sister, the oldest sister, you tend to have that nurturing aspect anyway. And
Yeah.
then when you have your younger brother that, like you said, you feel helpless, and being a faithful Christian family,
Yeah.
I'm sure you guys leaned into God a lot,
So
and
much.
that, tell me about that. Like, how is that? How's your faith played into your situation?
Well, I truly believe, I don't believe, I know that God has protected my brother so much through the years. There have been so many instances where, it could have gone the other way.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that God has protected him. For us as a family, knowing that we can turn to God, that He is our strength
Hmm.
when you feel totally zapped, which I'm sure as a mom, you're just like,
Yeah.
I don't have anything else to give. I don't know what to do. Yes, there is that hopelessness, but it's not, it's not a continual hopelessness, because we
Right.
know that we can go to God and He has answers, He has comfort. You know, we pray for my brother's healing. That's not something that we've ever stopped praying for.
Good.
Um, and I believe that that is possible. Why that hasn't happened yet, I don't have an exact answer, but I do know that
Good.
God is faithful, and I know that God loves my brother, and my brother is really strong in his own faith. Like, he's really incredible, and he loves God with his whole heart. He likes to get on his TikToks and, you know, make TikToks about God and the Bible, um, and that's pretty amazing. I think that's a really great example, because I don't know what that's like to live my life like that. I know my struggles and the things, but he doesn't he hasn't got to live the life that he planned for himself. And so for him to still have such great trust and faith in God, I think is incredible. You know, it's definitely helped my parents. I definitely, now that I'm a parent, it's given me a totally different perspective of what that must be like for my mom and my dad, and a deeper compassion and empathy, and also this deeper drive, I think, to like help my brother, because I'm looking at it now through the lens of like a mom now, and like what would I do for my own child. And so, um definitely it's kept us together. I think it's definitely helped each and every one of us pull us out of those moments where you're like, oh my God, or you're just so scared. Like, when he has really major surgeries, as I'm sure you just talked about, like, sometimes all you can do is drop to your knees and pray, you know, and ask God, please help him. Please comfort him. Please help this to end. Please give us answers. I mean, honestly, like, I was praying, and not only me, but especially my siblings, we've been talking about, like, how do we find some help for Steve? And then come, you know, I talk with my friend Kelly, who knows about you. And it's just like, you know, God is always at work, I think, on behalf of his people. And so that gives me great comfort. And knowing that doctors might fail, medicine might fail, all these other things might fail, but God will never fail.
Never fail.
And
Right.
so I think we all collectively hold on to that, and
Yeah.
knowing that there's a time coming when, you know, my brother will have a new body. It's not going to be like this. And, um, and the joy that will come that day is, you know, something that I think about, where he will not be, you know, limited to whatever is happening in his brain or whatever the drugs are doing that day. And, Um, so I think, sorry, that's like a long-winded answer, but
No, I appreciate it.
there's just so the God and His Word have played the ultimate role. I don't know
Hmm.
how we could have managed. I don't know how my parents could have managed. I don't know how my brother could have managed without that.
I agree 100%. I look back now and being a single mom with three boys and
Yeah.
Riley going through, I mean, I spent the first 3 years of his life in the hospital with him about 90% of the time. And I had two
Yeah.
other boys that I made sure that I didn't want to change their lives anymore because they were 7 and 10 when he was born. So there's quite an age gap. So we did a lot as a family, just
Yep.
three of us. We'd go jet skiing, dirt bike ride, and I was a total boy mom, always have been. So very active with them. And then when Riley got sick, I didn't want that to change, and so I made sure that I did my hardest to make sure that they still had their play dates and I still went to their games and practices and all those things. I did share custody with their dad, so it was 1 week on, 1 week off. But so when I didn't have them, I was consistently in the hospital. And thankfully, I had a job that I could work from the hospital. But the only way I got through that is my faith in God. And I know that God knew that He had a plan for Riley and for us and for my older boys that have made them more compassionate, more understanding. And there's a lot of good, believe it or not, and I know that you understand this, of what happens to us as individuals when we have somebody with special needs in our family. It makes us really live life to the fullest of what we have. What's important is our health, our faith, our family. And so when other people don't have that in their life, I don't know how they deal with it. I'm not saying it's right or wrong for them. I'm just saying I don't know how I could have done it without.
I feel the same exact way. Yeah. I go, how do you get up in the morning and go through life if you don't know that God is on your side? Like he's taking care of you, and I can turn to him and pray to him and know that he hears my prayers and he hears my brother's prayers. And I over the years we've had all sorts of people, Christian, they have different things to say. And I'll never forget one time somebody was praying for my brother to be complete. And I was like, he is complete because he's got Christ in him. So his physical body may not be what yours is,
Right.
but he's complete.
Yeah.
And um that's what God looks at and sees. And in this life, we all have physical ailments, but he is complete spiritually. He's complete, no less so than anybody else. Um, so that was one of the things that, like, I just remember striking me, being like, what are you saying? Why are you saying it like that? And so I think that is the other component, is that we look at my brother, and yes, he has these things going on, but if I have my head in the right space, I look at him and I know that he is completely complete because he's got God and Christ in him. And that is like, amen then. So in this life, if it doesn't turn out and he never gets healed and he has to deal with it, that is sad, but God is still faithful and God's word is still true. So our experiences, they help with my faith, but they don't necessarily dictate, because everybody has things. And so if I go through life and go, well, because this happened to me, God's word isn't true, or God doesn't love me, or he's not faithful, then I haven't really read the Bible. Because I'm like, point to the one person in the Bible who didn't have trials and tribulations,
Yeah.
and then we can have a conversation. So,
And I mean, when I look at like Riley, for instance, right?
yeah,
He's my son, and I remember being in a Christian church as well, and the pastor was talking about, there's not too many people that don't have sins and don't have bad thoughts and all these things. It's like, none of us know anybody that's so pure. And I'm like, I do. Like Riley can't. One, he's
yeah,
nonverbal, I mean, but he just is not a malicious person. I know he's
yeah,
not perfect, but I mean, his soul and just his being and just how faithful he is, and
yeah,
he just loves people, and he could never be malicious. Like, I mean, he doesn't act out, so he's just super sweet. But I just remember that too. It's like it's all about perspective,
yeah,
and so it's like, what are you going to focus on? And for somebody to say that about Steve is like, well, it's just because they don't understand, right? And so they
yeah,
think that because they're not like us, or they can't move like us, or have a normal life like us, that they're not complete. It's like he's more complete than a lot of people that
yep,
are, just don't have
it's true.
the emotional intelligence that actually he has,
Yeah.
even though he's special needs. So, epilepsy is, it's like I said, going back to that, it's just so hard. Your parents now, so how old are your parents?
Well, my dad is 75. My mom is 74, about to be 75. So
Okay.
they're getting up there.
Yeah.
um, and so, yeah, it is definitely takes a toll. I mean, Steve is able to, he gets up, it's changed in the last couple of years, because about a year or so ago he had a couple major seizures and whacked his head. And I don't think we realized at the time that he like really concussed himself, and he knocked his eyes out of alignment. And so he started being really like uneven, really. And, it's so hard to know. And I'm sure you've dealt with this when somebody has epilepsy, like, because for people who aren't familiar with epilepsy, they see somebody with a seizure and they immediately call 911. And we have to tell people, like, please don't call 911.
Yeah.
There's nothing they can do. And we just have to like ride this out. Now, unless they've really hurt themselves. But
Yeah.
they hurt themselves. A lot of them will fall, they smack into things. And so if you call 911 and you take them to the hospital every single time, you're in the hospital a lot, depending on how many seizures you're having. So I
Hmm.
don't think at the time my parents realized that he had like really
Right.
concussed himself. And
Right.
then this last year especially, he's struggled a little bit more. Before that, he was kind of working, he would work, he can drive. It's a kind of a touchy subject because there's
Yeah.
some of us in our family who are not thrilled with that, some of us who are more okay with that.
Right.
Um, but you know, he's worked, he went to school for a little bit. So again, there's been some ebbs and flows to his epilepsy. Um, but right now, they're switching him to a new drug, and he's
Okay.
still a little uneven. He's still struggling with that. I'm sure, Riley, you must have done the drug switch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. And so,
What's hard with those is that you have to, like wean them off
yeah,
slowly, and then you have
that's
to wean them on slowly,
yep,
right? And so when you're trying to wean them off so that you can start this new one because you don't want to know what's not working
right.
instead of just, when Riley was younger, I mean, the doctors just kept giving him cocktail and cocktail and cocktail after,
Yes.
drug after drug. I think he was taking like 22 drugs at one time.
Yeah.
And so it was like, I don't know what's working anymore, what's not, and why are
Yeah.
we still giving him this one if it wasn't working before? Like, why do we still give it to him? And so there's just these the unknown, right? And so
Yeah.
yes, the drug changes are always so difficult, and the anxiety that we have because of it is not fun.
Yeah, and it definitely takes a toll on my parents. I mean, they're pretty amazing, and you know, my mom was here today. We're in the middle of moving, so she comes
Oh
and
wow,
she's helping, and but you can tell it's always in the back. She doesn't want to be gone too long. It's always in the back of her mind, like, how's Steve? You know, like, and you know if he's having a bad day or um and sometimes, not sometimes, all the time, it just breaks my heart. Um, breaks my heart for my brother, but it breaks my heart for my parents. And I, again, since I had my kids, I think since my brother had his kids, since my sister, it just changes because you're seeing things in a different way and you're understanding your parents in a completely different way that you didn't before, because nobody can prepare you for parenthood
no,
until you have your own child. And people can talk about it, and then you have that kid, and then you're like, oh man.
yeah,
Makes you want to go
yeah,
back and tell your parents how sorry you were, and like,
exactly. And that's
um
typically what happens, right? Is that we
yes,
grow old, it's like,
yes,
wow, I'm so sorry to do that to you. I'm so
yes,
sorry to behave
yes.
that way. Yeah.
And I think there's a component for my brother Mike and my sister Elizabeth where sometimes it's really tough because we want to help our parents,
Hmm.
and they are like, well, this is our son and we're doing this, and we're like, okay, well, he's our brother, but you're also my mom and dad. And
Yeah.
so there's a little bit of like a sometimes a little bit of tug because they also don't want us to be overly concerned, but there's no way around that because
Right.
we
Because you
loved
love
him.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you
But
love your
they,
parents.
yes, and then
Yeah.
we love my parents. And so it is a little bit of a tough dynamic, especially as everybody's getting older.
Hmm.
It's something that we are kind of like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
What does this look like?
Well, and they're hard conversations to have, right? Like,
Yeah,
okay, what's our next step? What are
incredibly.
we going to do? Because, I remember for a time when Riley was first diagnosed, and people kept asking me, "What are you going to do if you can't walk? Or what are you going to do if you can't do this?" I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get through the next 5 minutes, and then I'm
Yes.
going to get through this next hour, and then it's going to be this day, and it's going to be tomorrow. Because if I start thinking too far ahead about what could happen and what I'm going to do, like I'll get paralyzed. Like I
Yeah.
won't be able to do anything. So I'm just going to keep having that faith and keep putting that foot in front of the other and live. And then, but then you get to a point in life that now we have to start thinking about what's going to happen, and what's
Yes.
the next step, and how are we can prepare. So those conversations I know are hard to have, especially like for me, because I'm the mom. So, like I don't want anybody else to worry. And Riley is a
Yeah.
blessing, but in a lot of sense, he's also a burden. Like when I was diagnosed with my brain tumor, I wasn't worried about what was going to happen to me.
Right.
My instant thought was, what's going to happen to Riley? Like,
Right.
who's going to take care of Riley? And so, um, that's the only reason I probably would I thought about like what we're going to do in the long haul if something happens. Because even though I was super healthy, I mean, what happened to me can be out of the blue. You know, me having
Right.
a seizure at grocery store and finding a brain tumor was crazy. Like I just it was so surreal to me. But it made me realize like that happened for a reason. Like God, you know, like, everything God has a plan, right? It's like so that was like okay, we have to do something. We have to plan something for
Yeah.
families, and that's where that all started. So that was a seed there, and now it's coming reality. But we want to help people have a place that they know that they can get counseling, they know that they can get answers, they know that they can go somewhere and have a place that their loved ones are loved or they need to have rest.
Yeah.
And so like families like yours where it's like maybe just not right away, or maybe it's something where it's just like hey, other having other community that um, isn't all about what's wrong, but like what can we do to be better, right? Because I've
Yeah.
been in support groups where they've been super great and motivating, and other ones that have been just like you just want to hold you down. And so I knew that those ones weren't for me.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
although we have to grieve, because there's a lot
Yep.
of grievance when we have special needs, right? But we also have to live and we have to let
Yes.
them live. And so we want to have that support, and having people like you that advocate is very important to have. And that's why I want to have you on this podcast, because you have so much insight. Your family has so much insight, but they always talk about the parents and what the parents go through, and the siblings are a very small part of that in the public eye because you just are kind of behind the scenes and stuff. And
Yes.
so I think it's important that you tell your story so other siblings can just feel like they feel validated and they feel understood. And it's like, okay, I'm not the only one that has struggled with this or
Yeah.
want to help.
I think it's important. Like, I do think it is a struggle because there is this aspect that when you start thinking about yourself, there's that guilt. Like,
Mhm.
this isn't about me. I'm not the one who has to live with epilepsy. I'm not the parent who has to watch your kid. And the tendency, at least for me, is like to bottle that. And that's
Mhm.
not always the healthiest route because we each have feelings and that's okay. It
Yeah.
affects us differently. So how it affects my mom and dad might not be the way it affects me. You know, for me, like one of the hardest things with my brother is sometimes I would watch people how they would view him because he's not always the most socially inept individual. Like sometimes he's a little awkward. And so I would see how people would perceive him or they would get annoyed and he wouldn't even bother him, but I would
Yeah.
lay awake for days like feeling that embarrassment, like cringing, like it would bring me to tears because I would be so mad and want to like
Protect them, right?
not
Like
yeah
stand up for
protect
him.
him, but
Yeah.
also like that secondhand embarrassment and being like I don't know, I would just feel it so deeply. And you never want somebody to be looking at somebody you love so much in a negative light. My parents always told me like you guys can fight amongst each other, but if somebody tries to come between the four of you, like you go to war, you take care of each other. And so you know, like I can say whatever I want about my siblings, but if somebody else comes along, like,
Don't you dare.
don't you dare. Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I think it's hard when you're not the direct parent, when you're not that person to find how your feelings fit into it. And
Mhm.
sometimes to even feel like it's okay to have those feelings and to feel frustrated sometimes because you wanted to do this but it doesn't work into this, or you know, even sometimes with my brother, like the way, like I'm not the most patient person, so I'm kind
Mhm.
of like, Steve, come on, this isn't realistic and let's do blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And that's not always the greatest way to communicate with him, but he's also just my brother, so I don't
Yeah.
always look at him through the lens of like, here's my brother and he has epilepsy. Sometimes I'm just like, you're my brother and you're driving me crazy.
Sure.
And that is also okay. Like, I
Yeah.
don't want to like baby step around everything, because that's not real life. We
It's
drive
not
each other
healthy.
crazy, and it's not
Yeah.
healthy, and it's not realistic. Just like my other brother drives me crazy, and I drive them crazy.
Sure.
Like I drive them crazy. I'm a very involved older sister, and I
Yeah.
overstep all the time. But um I it's because I love them so
Sure.
much. But it is difficult. And I think what you said, like, first of all, my mom says that all the time. Only can take it day by day. You
Hmm.
know, there's a verse that I will butcher, but God says He's our sufficiency for this day. I'm sorry, I'm butchering that verse, but so she says that quite often. When you were saying that, made me think of her, because she can only go moment by moment. I'm the type of person where I'm looking 5 years down the road. I'm always like a next step, Nancy. Like, what do I got to do? My brain is always running, running, running. And so there is sometimes a little bit of a clash, because, um, they're just trying to get through that moment. But I'm over here, and my siblings and I are over here looking like, what does this look like? What does this look like for you? What does this look like for him? And I think for my parents are like, we can't right now. We're just in this. And so that's where I was like, then let me do all the please. Like, this is where I can help. Like, I can't be there every single day, with my kids. I can't always be there. I mean, I see him at least once a week. We have a Bible fellowship. My dad is an ordained minister. So we have a family home fellowship. And that's what I grew up doing. And so we still go to my parents and have fellowship every week, and getting the word together and pray together. And it's, my kids sit through it, my brother's kids sit through it, and it's amazing. And so, and my kids love my brother. They think he's the best uncle. I don't think they know yet. They're 5. They don't even know that there's anything
Different or
different.
yeah.
And to them, that's just their Uncle Steve. And I love that so much. I know there's a time probably where there will have to be a conversation, especially if they ever see him have a seizure. But I kind of love that very innocent, joyous love that they have for their uncle, and they don't see anything other than this man who loves them and is a great uncle, and he is a great
And that's
uncle.
beautiful. That's a beautiful
It
thing.
is really great. It is really, and I think with each kid that's come into the family, there is more blessing and a little bit of healing. Each
Hmm.
kid that has come in, um, has brought its own little piece to it. And I think getting to see Steve interact with all the kids, and he is a great uncle. He's very dedicated to them and he loves them. There's
I
also
love
like a little bit of like healing that comes with that, at least for me, getting to
yeah.
see him do that, if that makes
Well, you
sense.
see him have joy with them, right? And
Yes.
loving them. And
Yeah.
that's the one thing about Riley is that if you want to know what joy looks like, you just look at Riley because
Yeah.
he is joy, so joyous all the time. And then, now I have a grandson and Riley didn't grow up around babies. So it's not like
Yeah.
we've had babies around forever. My girlfriend had a baby about 5 years ago and we were at a function together and Riley just crawled over because he can crawl. So
Yeah.
he's on the floor and out of his wheelchair and he crawled over to her and he wasn't reaching for her. He would just put his cheek down by hers, like she was in her car seat. And so he just put it
Yeah.
down very gently.
Well,
And then my grandson was born 2 years ago. And when they met for the first time, I'll send you this video, but it was my daughter-in-law was holding Cash and Riley just came up and just kept looking at him. And then he just very gently put his cheek to meet his cheek and just then it looked at him, was just so in awe of him, but just so gentle. And Riley gives like the most amazing hugs, but they're very strong, like
yes.
headlock hugs and stuff.
Yeah.
But when he's around kids, he's so
He's
gentle.
so
And I don't
gentle.
know where he learned that because it's not like we've had a lot of kids around him. So it's pretty amazing.
That is really incredible. I
Yeah.
just think he sounds like he has the most tender heart.
Yeah.
And,
He really does.
you know, the thing about all of these, and with people with disabilities ranging from here to there, is like
Mhm.
there's so much that they don't understand about the brain still.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think we've only scratched the surface, and we think we know where people at or what their understanding is, but there's so many stories like that where people are like, wait, what? And just kindness and love. And
Mhm.
obviously, you raised your kids to know about God, to know about His Word. And I think,
Mhm.
as a parent, when you see your kids act with love, that's
Yeah.
one of the greatest things you can ever witness, I think, as a parent. And
Yeah.
it sounds like that's what you saw Riley doing. And
Yeah.
I
He's
firmly believe that babies come out and they like know their family. They like
yeah.
know the people that love them, because
Mhm.
I saw it with all my nieces and nephews, how they would interact with our family and then with other people. And there was just like this instant bond, and they would be comfortable in ways that they weren't with other people. And so
Yeah.
I just think kids come out and they go, somehow they know, like, you're
Yeah.
my family.
Yeah.
And
This is feels good.
yeah, and then they'll grow up and they will have such patience
Yeah.
and such love and such empathy. And I also think that's an amazing thing to see and have.
You said an interesting about like you understood that your brother was sick and there were things that happened, but until you became a parent, it was a game changer for you because
Yeah,
you have all these different, like you said, this perspective of being a parent
yeah,
and that. And I think that as siblings, even my boys, like my son has a son now, so he has a little bit more. My 24-year-old, he's still just a 24-year-old having fun
yeah,
and everything. And I know that they're very compassionate with Riley and everything, but I know that I can see how Tanner reacts with his son and when something's wrong with him, and if he has a fever or whatever, just like how concerned he is and stuff. And so
yeah,
I know that, and not that I don't think it made him anxious. Like I don't think he's an anxious person. I don't think either one of my boys are anxious because of what they saw with Riley, because they saw some
yeah,
really bad when they were really young,
yeah,
bad seizures and stuff. But it just made them more compassionate, I think, and
yeah,
just more, yeah, just emotionally attached to people. Like they understand people's feelings and energy a
yeah,
lot, and
yeah,
so I think is that true for you? Do you feel like you are have more empathy and
yeah, for sure. I think when you experience something in your life and it affects you so deeply,
mhm,
I don't know how you can't in turn look at somebody else who's dealing with that and just want to reach out and squeeze them and help them
yeah,
and go, I know. Because I think what happens when there's a disability, a sickness, is that it can feel really isolating,
hmm,
because you're so in that world with your
yeah,
loved one, or if you're the one who's sick, you're in that.
hmm,
And to have other people who simply can just say, I know, I
yes,
get it. What you're feeling isn't wrong. What you're
hmm,
feeling is valid. Like that can be life changing. Um,
yeah,
because, you know, you mentioned sitting in the hospital. There is nothing worse than sitting in the hospital
hmm,
with any sick loved one. It's
hmm,
just the worst.
yeah,
The hospital, yeah, there's births, but for the most place, a hospital is a tough place to be.
yeah,
And there's a lot of sadness, a lot of sickness, a lot of people who are struggling, and then you're in there and you can't take your eyes off of your loved one. When you
hmm,
have a loved one in the hospital, you have to be paying attention to everything that happens. And that's not an attack at medical professionals. It's just the truth. I'm sure you know. And it becomes very heavy. And so I think um, there's been so many times we've been at the hospital and we've just connected with a random person, and either they've blessed our life or you have that moment in time where you can put your arms around somebody. And so yeah, I definitely see it. I see it in my siblings. I see it um, in my family, in my whole family, in my parents, where you just go, oh man, I know what that's like, and I'm
yeah.
sorry.
And I think that's why I'm so happy that you joined us today to talk
Oh,
about this,
thank you.
because there's going to be younger siblings that will watch this, or other people that will be like, okay, it's okay to feel these feelings. It's okay
Yeah.
to sometimes be bummed out that we can't do the things that we want to
Yep.
do. And it's okay to feel like I want to protect my loved one or
Yep.
all these things. And all these feelings are okay. There's no right answers and everything. But
Yeah.
anymore. I just feel like it's just a lot to take on. And so when I don't have anybody that, because the world goes on around you.
Yep.
So whatever you're going through, the world keeps turning, right?
It
And
keeps
so
turning. Yep.
people don't always see you, but I see you, and
Yes.
I really wanted to make that understood to you that I see you and I think you're amazing. I think your family is absolutely amazing.
You're amazing.
And I know that, I'm sorry. I know that you're gonna help a lot of people, not just
Oh,
your brother. And your brother's gonna help a lot of people because he has family like you and your siblings and your mom and dad that are advocating for them because it's going to be better for the next family, right? So people that are going through this, they're going to have answers because you do all the research that you do, Anna. You do all the things that you do and your family does. That's going to bring a lot of ease to other families that are following in your footsteps, unfortunately, for them. But fortunately, if they have that, because you guys are paving the way to like what there's got to be a better way.
that's how I feel about you. But I feel like I look at what you've done and how, you have the situation with your son, and you haven't just said, well, this is what it is. You are fighting for that change, and not only for him, but for an entire community where I don't know if people realize how needed something like Riley's residence is. I don't know if they realize the lack of things that are available, especially as people become adults,
Yeah.
resources, counseling, support, housing that's not just sticking them in a nursing home. Like,
Yeah.
there is a huge blank space for so many people. And here you are, and you're just like, I'm going to do this. And I think
Mhm.
you're incredible. Like, I'm so honored that you want me to talk about anything. I don't feel like I'm like, I don't really feel like I have anything that incredible to say, but like,
Oh,
I look at you and what you've done for your son and what this dream is that you have. And I just want to help because it is such a massive black hole that is needed, not only in Idaho, but I think as far reached as you could go. I think there's a lot of adults, there's a lot of emphasis when people are young, and obviously we love children and nobody wants to see a child sick. But what happens when you start transitioning and, you're not, this cute little kid. Now you're this adult, and a lot of people, they get scared. They don't understand disabilities. And so when people don't understand things, they tend to go, whoa, they get freaked out. And then people are left and they're lonely and they're isolated and they don't know where to go. And there's parents who have that same thought. What happens now?
hmm,
And siblings who go, what does this look like for my parents? For us, for our kids, because I'm a parent now. So can I take on possibly having my brother? I don't know. I don't think I could. That's a whole other thing. But then what does that mean about me? Like, and so how can I help? And so I think what you're doing, and this dream, and this, not a dream, I think it will be a reality, like, is so incredible and so inspiring and so needed and very godly, I think, because
thank you.
people need to be taken care of. And then people want to know that the people that they love, their sons, daughters,
Yeah.
brothers, sisters, are going to be taken care of by people who have compassion and who just don't see them as, you know, another bed, another
No.
person.
In my experience of what I've seen, Riley's been in two really good homes, but still, I advocate for him all the time.
Yeah.
I'm on them all the time. I make sure I know who's watching them, like what are they doing, and these families that, there's a couple of people that are older they don't have family anymore. And so who's
Yeah.
advocating for them? And so
Right.
when I go to his house and they live with people, one gal's just like, will you please be my friend? Will you please be my friend? And will you take your picture with me? And that's what breaks my heart because I'm
Yeah.
sitting here going, Riley has a family that loves him and a huge
Yeah.
community that love him, right? But you have these people that are either in their own home where their parents aren't able to take them out anymore and they're just trying to survive, or they feel isolated because their parents don't have the means to get help, or
Yep.
whatever, or they're in a nursing home somewhere and nobody's visiting them, nobody's advocating for them. whatever that is, like that's what I want to take. I want to erase. I don't want isolation anymore for this community, because that is more devastating than anything else that we would have to work with. The
Yes.
isolation. I mean, and we went through it. We went through it as healthy people during COVID, where we were
Yes.
isolated and couldn't touch anybody and do anything. And a lot of people, were losing their minds and going crazy, and people got anxiety and now can't go out socially. All these things that
Yep.
changed. And you think about all these people that live with that daily, and there's no end to it.
That's my brother, Michelle. That is my brother. He is so isolated. He has no friends. And it's the hardest thing. The epilepsy is one thing, but watching him be so lonely is the hardest thing for me because I can only do so much. I'm his sister. And but he's so longing to have friends, to maybe meet somebody. And there's just nothing available for him to do that. I know, my sister and I used to volunteer years ago at the Epilepsy Foundation, and, they're great at what they do, but I was like, I need something more than just fundraising. And a lot of the emphasis was on a lot of the younger um, kids, which is great. But what happens when you hit your 40s? Nobody thinks you're cute in your 40s, and now you're a 40-year-old man and you live at your parents and like, oh no, like there's a whole stigma that just comes along with that. And so, I think that is the hardest thing, and the thing that I wish that people would understand is that you said it so clearly, there is so much isolation and they don't even have sometimes the capacity. There's social media, but social media can be a very dangerous place for people who are that isolated.
Well, they're vulnerable, right? And they're desperate. And so I
Hmm.
had a family that their daughter had a TBI when she was 16, and so she's lived with them her entire life. She's almost 50, and she got in it, and some random man showed up at their door, and they didn't know who he was. They didn't
Oh,
know she'd been talking to somebody.
yep.
I mean, thank goodness she couldn't go out by herself to meet
Right.
this man alone, because who knows what would happen, right?
Right.
So there's so many things of that too, that we have to protect this,
Yeah.
this community. It's scary. And
It needs a lot of advocacy. Advocacy. Is that how you say that? Advocacy.
yeah.
Um, because I do think it's a little bit of a forgotten
Mhm.
community. And that's why when I heard about Riley's residence, I was like calling you, leaving messages, like, I'm gonna track
I
this
loved it.
lady
I
down.
love it. Yeah,
I was like, she's gonna
that's
think I'm
why.
nuts. But I just was like, I want to be a part of this. I want to see, like, not only for my brother, but just like you said, when you go through something and you see the effect, it makes you go like, how can I help somebody else, because yes, this is my family, but I'm well aware that there's many, 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 many other families out there struggling, and maybe they don't even haven't even heard about Riley's residence, or they don't even know that people are even talking about this, because I certainly didn't. A couple months ago I was just frantically calling and asking everybody I knew, what can I do, and hitting dead end after dead end after dead end, and I was like, oh man, oh no. So when I finally got to meet you and talk with you, it was like I just had this, I don't know, I was just like overjoyed. I just was like, oh my gosh, like, thank you. Like, here's somebody who gets it and wants to do something about it. And
We
I'm
will do
just,
something about it. And having people
yeah,
like you advocating and pushing and
anything.
input, that's what the number one thing I need. And I've heard many families say, my child or my sister or my brother, they don't want to necessarily live in a home. They want
Yeah,
to live, they can't live by themselves. So what can
right,
we do? So now we're doing
right.
something for that community too, where, hey, we don't want to just stick you in a home. What we want to do is we want to do holistic care for them. So
Yep,
comprehensive care for them. so that eventually they may get to move out of Riley's residence and they get to move on their own or with just their caretaker and not live in this, that's our goal. Like
Yeah.
we don't want to keep anybody sick. We don't want to keep anybody, we want to
Yeah.
give you all the therapy, all the things that they can't have access to now because either they don't have somebody to transport them, or whatever the situation is. We want it to be right there so they have it. And I mean, see how many people that we can empower and we can see them thriving and not just surviving in a room with all these other people, and that's
Yeah.
a big thing. It's like just because they're breathing doesn't mean that they're living a good life. I mean, we're responsible because we're able to, right? And
Right.
so if we just sit on the sidelines and we don't do anything for them, then we're just as bad as everybody else that doesn't see them.
Right.
And
Right.
it's worse because we see them and we
Right.
still don't do anything. So,
I think you just said something that was very important, is that people need other people.
yeah.
And I don't care what illness you have, I think there's science to back this up. If you take somebody and they're sick and you isolate them, they're
Oh,
just going to do worse. You take
yep.
somebody and they have whatever's going on and you surround them with support, comfort, love, whatever it is, other people that
Mhm.
they can talk to, somebody they can toss a ball with, somebody they
Yeah.
can, I don't care what it is, there's a
Hmm.
higher success rate of them maybe not getting all the way better, but there is going to be improvement. And so I definitely look at my brother and I believe with my whole heart that he could have a better life than he has right now. And I am committed to doing anything that I can do in my power to do that because of just what you said. Because if I cannot go to bed at night, I cannot look at him, look at my siblings, look at my parents. For me, now none of them are putting pressure on me, but for me, in my heart of hearts, like I can't be okay if I don't think that I have done everything within my power to advocate for him. And I don't always do it in the best way. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not always the most patient, but these are the things I can do. I can't find you a date.
Yeah.
Like I can't always take you out. I can't, but this is something I can do. And if I don't do that, then like what, then I'm just words, like, and I don't want to be that. I want to do everything, to feel like I did everything I could to get him to the place where he can have the best life that he can have. And I think that looks different for each and every person. And a lot of times in the medical industry, there's a box
Hmm.
and they want to put you in this box. And
Hmm.
people are not, they don't fit in that box. And
No.
so when you talk about having those services at Riley's house, like it gives me chills because you're not just talking about having a place where people go sit in their
Yeah.
room. You have this vision of a place where people are getting their needs met from A to Z. And
Hmm.
that takes my breath away.
Thank you. The silver lining for putting Riley in a home way sooner than I ever thought I would, because I never thought I would do it anyway. But is the fact that when I do bring him home, and for the first year it was just him and I that lived there, so he'd come home and it'd just be me at home, and now it's my husband and I. But that he's excited to see us and he loves it. But then like he's kind of looking like, where is the dance parties? Where are my buddies at? Like this is
Yeah.
fun, but he's like kind of looking. Like I said, he crawls through the different rooms and
Yeah.
stuff, and he's kind of looking around and he'll go back in his room and he'll close the door like a typical teenager, and and then he'll come back out again. And but I know that he's kind of like, this is fun but it's boring at the same time. Like, I love
Right.
you, mom, but I need some friends. Like, where are my buddies at? And then when
Right.
I take him back and he's jumping up and down in his chair and super excited, I'm like, okay, so I know they're doing a good job, but we can
Yeah.
do better and we
Yeah.
will do better. And so that's why I want, and everybody's like, why do you want such a big facility? I'm like, because they need to have a big community. Like, we all need to have these options, right? And so,
Yeah.
um, having the art therapy and the music therapy, like, I don't know what Riley's capable of because I don't do those things. So who knows? He
Right.
might be this amazing artist, or he might love music, and other than just hearing it on the on the
Right.
repeat or whatever. And so it's like, why not give them those opportunities to see where they can just have that outlet of whatever it is, and maybe it's not even something like that. Maybe it's something as simple as being a mentor, like maybe Steve being a mentor to somebody like Riley, where he goes and picks him up out of his room and
He
takes him
would
down to his
love
therapies,
that.
and then you see other people doing the same things and stuff. It's like, it's just, I can picture it so clearly. And it's
Yeah.
always been when I'm at church, I have the most vivid ideas and thoughts. And it's like, it's so clear to me about how things go. And so when I was working with the architect about the building, I mean, it's all those images came to me at church, and it's been very and
I
it's
love that.
hard to say this, but sometimes I'm not listening to what the pastor's saying because I'm like, these things are just coming. And
Right.
so I have a notebook, and it's I've had like 5 or 6 notebooks just like this
I'm a
that I
notebook
have
queen
my notes
too.
in. And there's, I mean, literally like all these tabs, and it's all Riley's residence ideas and scribbles and stuff, and nobody else could probably read them, but um it's just these thoughts, and I know that this is a God thing because of when I have them the most is when I'm connected to God. um and so, yeah, to have these people have every opportunity that they deserve and more, and not just have the bare minimum with, handicap ramps and,
Yeah.
a rail. And I mean, it's like, okay, guys, like we need to do way more than what we're doing. And so
Finding
that's,
out where people's capacity is. Because I look at my
mhm,
brother and I think his life isn't going to look like mine, right?
no,
But what does his life look like for him? What
yeah.
is his capacity to do whatever it is that he wants to do? And he loves to help people. And he wanted to be a physical therapist, like assistant, and he was
Oh,
kind of going to school for that, and they kind of changed it, and then his health kind of struggled a little bit, and so, but he does have a great desire to help people, which is why I think sometimes he gets into a little bit of trouble, because he just is wanting to help people. And so, yeah, as when I read that and when we talked for the first time and you mentioned that, it was just like, because he doesn't want to just sit
yeah.
someplace and feel useless, and he wants to give. Everybody wants to feel like they have a purpose. And I think when people are left with feeling like, what is my life? Like I have no purpose, I have nothing to, no place to give. And I'm a big believer in being able to give is
Hmm.
such a big part of life, and it keeps, and being thankful.
Hmm.
And that's how I was raised, to be thankful, but also to always be looking to opportunities to give.
Hmm.
um and my mom taught me, like when we would hear sirens, she always taught us to pray, and it's pray for the people who affected, pray for those drivers. And it's something I've taught my kids, and I now, when they're outside in the backyard and they hear a siren, they stop and pray.
Oh, and they're
And
5. How sweet is
they're
that?
5, yeah. They've been doing that for like at least, at least a good year and a half. So,
Yeah.
um, but that opportunity to give is so important. And for them, even though they're 5, that's an opportunity for them to give. They're giving because they're praying. They're doing, the best thing that they could do in that moment. And I just really believe people need, yeah, they need to be cared for, but they also need an outlet to be able to give, because they do have something to give. And it might look different from each person to each person, whether it's a hug, whether it's a smile and it's returned, whether it's, you see the simplest gestures, and but they are having that opportunity to give. And that's what I want for my brother, is for him to feel like he can give of the things that he has, because he does have lots to give and offer.
Well, and we all want to be seen, right?
Yep.
And we all want to be, like you said, purposeful.
Yep.
I think you said that having purpose is so important. I mean, it's like having purpose and having hope are almost the same thing, right?
Yep.
Because it's like without purpose, there's no hope. Without hope, there's no purpose. So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, so what do we do for them? And I think that going back to you being here today and telling your story and stuff is so purposeful for so many families, like I said. And if you could talk to a little girl, the little Anna in you, right, about, hey, what this is going to look like, and know that's going to be okay. And that's what you have the opportunity to tell other young girls and other young boys, in the situation, that it's going to be okay. It's going to be a hard road, but it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And and I think that's just having them understand that, and telling their parents like your kids are going to be okay, your other
Yeah.
kids are going to be okay.
Yeah.
Is so huge because I've wondered so many times about my older boys, like how much it affected them. And we talk about it, but I don't know if they feel 100% wanting to be honest with, because it might hurt me, telling
Yeah.
mom directly, okay,
Yes.
it kind of sucked that you did this or whatever. But I think them just being able to relate to somebody else and have those feelings of frustration or the feelings of being jealous or having the feelings of being like this overwhelming sense of love for this and wanting to be protected. I remember my son who's 7, so my middle son's 7 years older than Riley. Riley was going into kindergarten, and so kids make fun of the short bus and stuff, right? And so when I told him that your brother's going to start school tomorrow, and he's like, I go, the bus is going to pick him up, and he goes, Mom, he goes, is it the short bus? And I go, well, yeah, honey, He goes, no, he goes, just drive him to school. Don't let him go in, because he was so afraid of other kids making fun
Yes.
of his brother,
Yep.
but he wasn't trying to be mean. He was just like, no, like I don't want anybody to make fun of him
Right.
because he's on the short bus.
My
And I
brother is
just
very
truly
much like
remember
that.
him feeling that sense of being protective and not wanting his brother to get teased and stuff. And even though his brother wouldn't know the difference, right? But
Right.
Hunter knew the difference, and so I
Yep.
remember that. But I think that having somebody tell them at that younger age that this is going to be tough, but it's going to be okay, and they're going to be amazing young men because of it.
Yep.
I think would have helped them so much, and it would have helped me as a parent knowing that somebody talked to them that has gone through it, that can relate to
Mm.
them and understand and
Yeah.
see them, not see their sibling that's sick or has problems or the parents, but to actually see them. And so,
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to like imagine like if somebody would have had that conversation, that probably would have been very cool. Would
yeah.
have been very nice. Because I think when you're in that situation too, there is a lot of focus on that sibling, and again, my parents did a really great job, as it sounds like you did too. But there are times when that takes precedent, and
Oh, yeah.
um, but I do think that if you can come from a place as you're growing up, if your parents instill in you that thankful heart, no
Hmm.
matter what was happening, we had to look for the things to be thankful for. So it didn't matter how
Right.
bad the day. So if Steve had a really bad seizure, we're thankful that he came out of it.
Right.
We're thankful that he's okay. We're thankful that he has his doctors, whatever it is. Like, after all these years, I'm thankful that he can get up out of bed. I'm
Hmm.
thankful that he, is who he is. And um, I think it can help make you stronger and hopefully turn around and then, look at somebody else and do that. And that's kind of the wheel of motion that you want to kind of get started. And that's, I think, why we teach our kids that, so that one day they will do that. And so
Yeah.
I, I have no doubt that you're an incredible mom, obviously. And I think my mom is just, she takes my breath away with her strength. Um, and because of that, and I'm sure your boys, especially your son who has a kid, he looks at that. And I know I look at my parents and go, I want to do that. And
Hmm.
I would say to parents who feel like they're missing it or their other kids, yeah, we might have those feelings, but I think also I know that my parents would lay down their lives for me and my
Hmm.
siblings. So I could go to bed every night and know that my parents loved me.
Yeah.
And maybe everything wasn't exactly how I wanted, or maybe I couldn't go do this. And really, when I was a kid, it didn't impact my parents like you did a really good job of not having it impact us. And also, Steve wasn't struggling as much. He still did have things, but it wasn't to the level it is now.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different. But as an adult, all I want to do is be the same type of parent that my parents were for their kids. And I feel like, I don't know your sons, but I feel like I would say that that's probably how they feel. That they
Thank
want
you.
to, in turn, fight for their kids like you fought for them and you fight for Riley now. And
Thank you.
so, to any parents who listen to that, like, your kids are watching you and they're seeing that you would do anything for them, and that doesn't go unnoticed. So give yourself a
Mhm.
break, and
Yeah.
you're doing your absolute, your best, and you're teaching your kids what it means to be a parent, which is to
Yeah.
fight tooth and nail for your kids, whether they have this or this or this or this, whatever it is, you fight for your kids.
Yeah.
And I think God fights for his kids. I know
Right.
he does.
Yeah,
He's
for
always
sure.
fighting for his kids.
Yeah. I grew up Catholic, and so when I became a Christian and started going to Christian church, it was very charismatic, right? And
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm not used to this. I mean, we're pretty
Yeah.
strict with how we were, and people were raising their hands and doing all these things and worshiping. I'm like, I didn't really understand that. And then there was a broadcast on I think it was on K-Love, and somebody asked, like, why do people raise their hands? It's like, because they want, it's like when you're a little kid and you want up, like you want to have your parent
Yeah.
pick you up. And so you're asking God to raise you up and help you, get through whatever you're
Yeah.
helping, or, you want to show him love or whatever. And I always remember that as thinking like, that's such a great explanation as to why people do that and what that means. And so, there's been so many times I put my hands up in the air and just ask for like, just help me. Like, I just need to feel connected and I need that.
Yeah.
I need to be raised up right now. Um, and I think that other parents can do that the same. Like, like you can help other siblings, you can help other grown siblings that have people that are in the next phase of life. Like what's going to happen. So thank you again for sharing your
Oh my
story
God.
and coming
Thank
on
you
here. And
for having me. I feel so honored.
I can't wait to meet your parents and your other siblings, and I can't wait to meet Steve. I'm very excited about that. So,
Yes, I
yeah, lots
know.
to look forward to, and I do want to have you on here again. I want to have your
Oh,
siblings
okay.
and maybe your mom and dad will join us, and hopefully Steve. But I
Yeah.
think it's important that we heard your story, and I
Thank
think
you.
you're absolutely amazing. Your family's amazing. Your parents have done a phenomenal job, and there's so many things that you said about them today that I just am just thinking about. And it's like I hope that they know how much you love them and how much you respect them, and hopefully they'll listen to this and they'll know, because man, it's like nobody gives us a manual, right? Like nobody gave us instructions to what happens, and
Nope. Nope. I wish sometimes there was.
helping them with your brother, I think it's amazing. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
And yeah, I just can't say enough. I really appreciate you.
I really appreciate you. And I'm excited to hopefully help in whatever way I can. I'm on board because I
Yeah,
fully believe in what you're trying to do. And I'm like, yep, I'm here.
yeah. Thank you.
I'm into it. I'm into it. So thank you. Thank you so much.